Welcome to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Hey, that's me. Hi, and welcome to Positive Talk. Our show features the best positive stories and people from around the globe as we endeavor to answer the universal question of why am I here and what is my purpose? Understanding that can change everything, and knowing your greatness is fundamental to living your best life. So join us right now as together we work to create the adventure of our lifetime. And welcome to the show, everybody. I've got a great show for you today. I know. I say it all the time, but I always mean it when I say it. And today we've got a great guest. And Brachelle's going to be here. She was sick yesterday, and all of the people that reached out, she's better today. So I'm grateful for that. And she's going to get here when she can. And but I need to tell you a story real quick. And this story involves the human life, if you will, the life that we all lead. And I like to call it a bad country music song period, which we all go through times that are difficult. And we go through those times that are difficult because it's an experience that we need to learn from so that we can live the life that we were meant to live. And we can live in the greatness that we are. And we have a guest today that is paramount to that. He is a licensed therapist. He has been through the wars, as it were, and he's written a book that we're going to talk about extensively. But I need to introduce him again. His name is Kurt Warner, and he's a licensed therapist. And Kurt, welcome to the show. By the way, did you know you have a famous name?
I've heard it once or twice that I have a famous name. Yes, and thank you very much for having me on, Kevin.
Well, you are one of those people that when you reached out to us, and you reached out to us through a service that we use called Podmatch, I believe. And it was like, well, we got to have him on the show. And we got to have him on the show as soon as we can, because you will have an impact on the people that we will talk about and to today, because your life, it really is a blueprint of the human experience. We all have a little bit different human experience, but now, after all that you've been through, you're now a licensed therapist, and your job now is to help people get through what you have now, the experience of going through that. Because I could just see somebody sitting in your office going, well, this happened to me and that happened. Oh yeah, that happened to me. That happened to me too. And that happened to me. And so you can then talk to people in a really real way. And so welcome to the show. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you very much. I'm very glad to be here.
And
And,
we
and
go ahead.
just speaking to that empathic notion of being having an understanding, not obviously knowing what anybody else is suffering, but having a basis for which to understand it does go a long way from a therapeutic standpoint. I think in treating them.
Well, you know what's interesting about your story is you're a licensed therapist, which means that you're an educated man. And but there was a time when you had a severe brain injury and had to have surgery on your brain. Can you tell us about that? Because there are lots of people that have had severe brain injuries, and I've talked to several, and it's really hard for them to get back into the flow of things and stuff. So how did you do that? And how badly was your injury?
Uh, so the cerebellum, it sits in the back of the brain, and it is very dense in neurons. So in total, all the neurons in the brain, there's something like 80% of the neurons in the cerebellum. I lost half of that. So I lost about 40% of the neurons in my brain, roughly. And that sent me down a path where I had to relearn pretty much everything, and redo everything, because the one side had to take over for the other. So the cerebellum governs many things, but primarily coordination, balance, things like that. So I had to relearn how to walk. I had to relearn how to talk. If anybody wants a concept of the way the cerebellum affects them, and if alcohol affects the cerebellum first in terms of when it affects the brain, and that's why we slur, because the cerebellum governs the muscles in the mouth a lot. It governs coordination, so we don't have the same coordination. We fall, we can't walk well. It governs all of that. So that was and many other things as well. But that's the primary function, and I lost half of that, and it gave me a long road. Not to mention things like vasospasms and other issues that involve damaging of the brain because of complications in the hospital. So there's quite a bit of damage that I had to navigate and relearn.
Well, and congratulations on I imagine that you also have got a good support team around you at that time to help you get through all of that.
The best, and by that I mean my family. My mom in particular was by my she the memory is very affected in terms of most brain injuries, and one of the few memories I have is my mom sitting in one chair and putting her feet, two hard wooden chairs in the hospital, and she put one next to the other, and she laid across it night after night on that hard surface, and just slept next to the bed that I was in, so that she could stay with me during it. And without her, I don't know where I'd be. Yeah.
Well, and I'll tell you, as you know, in order to survive the trauma that most of us, if not all of us, have, it's important to have a great support team around you because you
It
can't
is,
do it
and
alone.
you can. I would say that's true for like you said, almost any malady.
Yep, and by the way, not only did you have a, severe brain injury, but you had OCD and you've had, bipolar since you were 15, and sometimes bipolar takes you down a dark road, and so you also had suicidal thoughts for many times, and thank goodness that you have overcome all that. You've written a couple of books now. You're a therapist, and we're going to talk about your books. I want to focus on the book Victory in Every Fall, because and the and give me the approach again.
Antius approach. Yeah.
The Antias approach, and of overcoming disabilities, because I don't know who you, I don't care who you are. We all have disabilities in one way or another, either seen or unseen. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. One way or another. It's statistically, and even if it's only by perception, there is something that brings us down, that brings us to the ground all the time in our lives.
So tell us about the approach that you use, the Antius approach, and how it plays into your work, and where did it come from? Because it's Greek mythology, isn't it?
It is Greek mythology. Yep. Ovid's Metamorphosis. It came out of one of the stories. He preserved a lot of the mythological stories. Antaeus was one of them.
Oh,
Um,
and that is cool. And Antaeus overcame the fact that every time that he fell down, he got stronger. Is that the basic thing?
So Antaeus's mom was the goddess of the earth, who's Gaia, and his dad was Poseidon, the god of the sea. And so he had quite an upbringing, quite an ability off the start. He was called one of the giants in Greek myths, was a very strong figures. He was in Libya. He's mythologically stationed in Libya, and the myth of Antaeus states that when passerbys would come through the town that he was in, he would challenge them to a fight. He always wanted to fight, and because he was very amenable to getting thrown on the ground. He would get beaten up, but when he did get thrown to the ground, his mother was the earth, so she nourished him. By hitting the ground, he became stronger. I use that trope because I found with all of my disabilities and with my, with the issues that my clients struggle with, there's a way to look at them and go about them wherein the fall, the hitting the ground can bring with it gifts that make us stronger to face the next one or beat that one.
I couldn't agree with you more, because as we go through life, that we always have challenges and we
Mhm.
have experiences, both good and bad, that are designed, in my opinion, are designed for the betterment of the person that we are destined to become. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. It's like we're being forged in a way and the trial has like a blacksmith's hammer. Yeah.
Oh, I
You-
wish I'd have said that. That's really
That's
good.
yeah, and that's over time. I noticed that that forging process is curing us. It's not curing in the colloquial way, but it's making us better and stronger if we can do it that way. And that's what I'm trying to say overall.
Because and that isn't that the primary message that we should all walk around with and understand?
Yes, I would. I think it's a very strong one that is constructive rather than destructive. So,
Because I know in your work and you talk to a lot of people, and there are people who it's almost like they treat the bad things that have gone on in their life as like a badge of honor, and then they become a victim of their own life. Does that make
mhm.
sense?
Sometimes the yes, it becomes a part of the identity in a I would argue maladaptive way. Sometimes it can, and instead of a constructive way, and that's where I think from a therapeutic standpoint, it's able to make it so we lead a more constructive and productive existence rather than sort of holding on to it, whether it's trauma or anything else like that. This disability.
Now, you've been through a lot of stuff, including losing your mom and dad within a year of each other. And, your and the brain dysfunction and all of those things. How did you recover? How did when did you decide, "You know what? I'm going to overcome my disabilities, and I'm going to become a therapist because I can help people." What decided you to do that?
Well, I would say the fierce necessity of the moment in each case. Kevin, my first one of the things that I write about in the book, I take each disability and I talk about the evolution of them. And my first memory on Earth is obsessive compulsive disorder. I was counting my footsteps, or my mom and dad would die or get hurt, or something would happen to them if I didn't end on an even number. Stop it. I had to do this. I couldn't step on a crack. There were all kinds of things that they had to make sure. But it was yes, very, 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 very real. For me now, if you've ever read a Kafka novel, wake a lot of his characters wake up as a bug or on trial or for a crime they didn't commit. There's some absurd situation that they're in. I found my entire life to be these absurd situations, and what do you do in them except move forward, find a way, uh, change the dynamic? I could either agree that it was going to hurt my family if I didn't count the footsteps, or I could fight. And at the time, I agreed because I was 5. But there's an evolution there. Uh,
So that's the one aspect that I didn't really know about OCD, is that when that happens, you are afraid of the consequences if you don't do the things. Like if you're stepping on a crack, something bad was going to happen. And that is why it became the what it is, and became the disorder that it is, because you were scared of a negative outcome if you did not follow these particular rules that you had set out for yourself.
in everything. And that's a very good way of summing it up. And it's in everything. If you've ever read Orwell, 1984, the notion of Big Brother, who's going to stomp out any negative behavior and have you live just the way it wants you to live, or else. That's what OCD was and still is for me. All the time. It's always using fear to make you do what it wants.
That is amazing. So, in many ways, working. living through that, you're living in a constant state of fear and panic. Is that fair?
Constant of whatever it chooses next. And the worst part of it, Kevin, in terms of the OCD, is that it picks what you love. The things that you're more attached to, at least for me, I don't want to speak for all people with OCD, but it picks whatever I care about the most. At 5 years old, I loved my mom and dad were the end of the beginning and the end of the world for me. So it picked them. Later on, it would pick anything else. I played sports a lot. It started to target sports, and it made sports some aspects of sports very difficult for me. It chooses what you love and it eradicates it for me.
That is, I had never looked at it that way, and that is a horrible, horrible thing to have to deal with on a day-to-day basis.
It's insidious, and I use that Big Brother metaphor because it's horror. It almost makes you want to be Buddhist because you want to non-attach to everything, so it has nothing.
Yeah, so you end up wanting to not attach to anything because that's the only way that you can defeat this insidious thing.
Exactly, and that's where you gravitate toward concepts like that because you have to figure out a way to stop it.
Well, by the way, we're talking with Kurt Warner. He's written the book Victory in Every Fall. We need to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk more about the book and also his life story, because he discovered that he was bipolar, which led to a whole nother series of of life experiences. And I'm so pleased for you that you've come out the other side. So we'll be right back right after this message. At 67 years young, I never thought I'd feel this good again. But thanks to Purium's Ultimate Transformation Lifestyle, to date, I've lost 37 pounds and gained energy, confidence, and a whole new outlook on life. This isn't a diet. Purium is a complete lifestyle change, giving me all the natural, organic, nutrition-packed superfoods that fuel my body, crush my cravings, and help me burn fat naturally without starving myself. No gimmicks, no guesswork, just a simple, proven system that works. Superfood shakes, detox support, and real results. If I can do this at 67, imagine what you can do. It's your time to feel better, look better, and live better with Purium. Let's do it now, and let's do it together. Go to www.positivetalkradio.net and click on the Transform You to get started. That's positivetalkradio.net. Transform You. And welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. And Rochelle's going to be joining us in a little bit, I hope. And we've got Kurt Warner with us. He is a licensed therapist. He is an author. That must feel good to say. You're an author.
It feels wonderful. It's very, very meaningful for me. I've wanted to be an author since when I had my whole brain, actually. I wanted it all the way back then, which was 23 years ago.
Wow. And just to finish the discussion on your brain injury, how long did it take, or is it still ongoing today, the recovery?
It's absolutely still ongoing today. I talked about the some of the it would take a very long time to go through all the symptoms and the issues that it put me through, but as far as the coordination goes, that I can play sports today. I can do just about anything, and I do play sports today and do just about anything. It's the memory that that's the lingering piece that still gives me pause. I'm talking to you now. I have a sheet in front of me just in case I forget something that I want, because that's how I've learned to adapt. In all things, I have a system or a methodology to make sure if my memory can't come up with it, I can come up with it.
Well, you know something, you're not 67 yet. Wait till you get there, and your memory just there are words that I know them, I can tell, and I sense them, but I can't get them. The computer is a little slower than it used to be, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely. I feel like I've gotten a sense of what it was like when it first started. When I first had my brain injury, and I obviously don't remember any of this part, but my family would tell me people would come and talk to me, and then they would leave, and then they would come back in, and I wouldn't recall, 10 or 15 minutes later, and I wouldn't recall at all what was said. And then slowly through all the exercises, the therapies, the everything else, it came along little by little, and now I like to think I have a working memory, but it's still there's deficits there.
I have to tell you a quick story, and maybe
Yeah.
you saw this episode, but I interviewed a gentleman just this last week, and the interview started like this. His name is Sid, and they said, "And I would like to welcome Sid to the program, but he died." And but he came back, and because he died for 8 minutes, and he was in a coma for a period of time, and he had the exact same experience. There was a couple of days where the nurse would come in and draw blood, and he'd say, "You are the very, very best." And then she'd leave, and then she'd come back and he'd say, "You were the very, very best," because
Yeah.
he had no memory of his short-term memory was gone for a period of time.
Mhm.
And so I imagine that was very similar to what you experienced.
It's very similar. It sounds very similar, and I found a lack of understanding in the general in the hospital, it's fine. Everybody understood, and nobody gave me, okay. So they just told me it over and over, and I asked over and over, and I would, they keep helping me with it. But when it came to the rest of society, for a long time, I had to find ways to deal with it, and some of those were humorous because I didn't know how else to. So I would use Memento. If you ever see Memento, have I told you about my condition? Because I couldn't remember. The character has no memory, and when he forgets all the time, he always says, "Have I told you about my condition?" And I would do that a lot with with people.
Well, and it's interesting because senses of humor can go a long way to helping you deal with a lot of the negative things in life that happen to us. You know what I mean?
Very much so. Yeah,
That
it, it,
that's
hel- it helps a lot to mitigate it.
Yeah, that's why I call what happened to me. My dad died, my dog died, my wife left, I lost my house, I had to declare bankruptcy, I got sued for $50,000, I hit a bridge with a truck, and so I tell people that was my bad country music song, period. And which kind of encapsulates what it was like to live in that 3 or 4 year period. But my experience was nothing. Uh, like your experience. Yours was a lot deeper and a lot more profound, and the recovery from it took a great deal of time and love, and your family and your wife and all the folks that you've surrounded yourself with, who care and love you. It's remarkable what love can do, don't you think?
It is remarkable what love can do, and there are few medications that equal or can even come close to equaling that when it comes to getting better. Is that understanding that love? I alluded to the hospital. There was an acceptance of that behavior. When it came to outside of the hospital, it wasn't. It's the same thing with OCD. There was no acceptance that I had to, count something so many times or check something so many times. So I learned to make, in a social sense, I learned to make a joke of it a little bit. That was a helpful thing. That was something I provide in a social context. It still didn't stop the doing it. That was something else that stopped the behavior.
Well, and how is the behavior today? Have you managed to negotiate it a little bit better?
Mm, mm, mm. Yes, yeah. I'm certainly not. It's certainly not gone, but it's certainly to quantify it. Let's say if it gives 1,000 commands per day, I only listen to, let's say, 300 of them, 30%. Out of expediency rather than all of them. And when you do that, it becomes 2,000, and it just grows if you could do them. Yeah. So
So, the premise of this show is finding your purpose, finding your passion, and living your best life. And you have worked tirelessly to do that. Where did that begin for you? When did you decide I'm going to conquer these issues that I have, and I'm going to put myself in a position of where I can help other people? Was there a moment in time, or was that an evolution?
uh, I would say it's a very good question. I would say it would have been more of an evolution, but there was. specific moments in time when I examined myself for what made meaning for me and concluded that it was to just make somebody else's yoke easier to bear, so to speak. Just trying to find a way to alleviate suffering in some way, shape, or form in somebody else. That's all that made sense in the end of the day when I searched myself and read the things that I read and did a Socrates-like examination of self, I should say.
And I'm looking at the wall behind you, and there's a bunch of diplomas and other things up there. So you've really you did what a lot of people don't do, and that is you took all of the experiences and all of the things that had been going on with you, and you decided to make a difference for humanity and to help other people that had gone through similar things. And that in and of itself is a huge gift to humanity, which I want to congratulate you for. And also that you're doing it not because you're making a ton of money, but because you're helping people. And every person that comes into your office, I think, walks away feeling like you're genuine and that you really help them.
Absolutely, and thank you. I think there's a point at which suffering can become so acute that pursuing material things, pursuing other things in existence, the volume gets turned down on. I'm trying to make other people like you or want to keep up with society. It puts things in perspective, I think, a certain amount of suffering. And when that occurs, I think other values become clear. And for me, the only one that made sense was making sure others didn't have to try to stop others from having to go through something similar.
And to help them, if they are going through something similar, to help them negotiate through it.
Yes, in any by in any way that yes, that will yeah, absolutely.
And that, my friend, is the highest service that we can have, is when you are in service to others.
Absolutely. And the other thing I would note, Kevin, based on the question in terms of, I think with some when it comes to different type of adversity, some are more, I guess you could say, emotive than others. And what I mean by that is bipolar disorder started off as something that was I mean, anyone who is, there's something in mania that's very alluring, in hypomania, there's an allure. You're more productive. You're very capable. You think very highly of yourself. You have all these qualities that you have. But then when the switch flips and the depression comes on, there's this tremendous necessity to get out of it. It's drowning. It's for me, it was always most like drowning. And when you have to do that for at first, in the ultradian cycling, it was very short, but then the cycles grew longer and longer. When that goes into full blown 9 months at a time, there has to be some way. The necessity of it is so much that you have to. It's so there's such a desperation in it, and that's what that feeling. I find it tragic that any of us as human beings have to feel that feeling at any point in our lives. And I think a lot of us do at some point in one way or another, not bipolar, any kind of stuff. And that's what I want to, that's what I would dedicate my life to. And I think it's a very positive notion to try to get somebody to pull out of that, to get away from that.
Well, and it not only affects the individual who is suffering from bipolar, but it
Mhm.
also affects family and friends that are around him or her. In this case, my brother was married to a young lady, and she was bipolar, and they got married and divorced, I think 2 or 3 times, because she would go through manic depressive episodes and
Mhm.
call the police on him and stuff. And but when she was good, man, was she good. She was a great, as he explained it, I don't know this for a fact, but she was a great sex partner. She was a great house cleaner. She did all this really cool stuff. When she was on it, she was really on it. when she went over the edge and became depressed, then she called the police and had him thrown out of the house and until she got better again. And then she showed up at his house with a casserole of spaghetti and wearing a coat with nothing on underneath it, if you know how that turned out. And so for him, because he was a friend and was in love with this woman, it was a roller coaster ride for him, just as it was for her.
Absolutely, similar to that story, I would argue that there's a lot of anyone who has serious and persistent mental health issues, or and especially bipolar in that way, have all those loved ones around them are very affected in one way or another, and that goes with traumatic brain injury too. I would argue that goes with any malady in any way, shape, or form. But so then the treatment often becomes larger than just the person, and yeah,
Exactly.
that's yeah.
And by the way, we're talking with Kurt Warner. He's a licensed therapist. He's got a book out. It's called Victory in Every Fall, the Antaeus Approach to Overcoming Disabilities. I hope I said that even close to being right. And we need to take our station break. We'll be back in like just 1 minute and 10 seconds. So don't go away. We're going to talk more about the book and also his approach to helping because he has had some, but he is living the life that he has chosen to live in a much bigger. And I'm going to ask you when we come back, is your life bigger than you even thought possible? We'll be right back.
You're listening to Brushwood Media Network, the best in syndicated talk, news, and entertainment shows.
As you go about your daily life, look closer. As you gather with family and friends who love and support you, look closer. There are youth right in your community who don't have the home, warmth, and healing you have. So look closer. Every year across America, a staggering 4.2 million youth are homeless or trafficked. And for 50 years, Covenant House has worked relentlessly to keep them safe and protected. Tonight, 2,000 young people will sleep safely in a Covenant House bed. And tomorrow, they will wake up surrounded by love. They get clean clothes, hot meals, medical care, and a safe place to sleep. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In sites across America to help them fulfill the great promise of their lives. So look closer at Covenant House. To help or get help, go to covenanthouse.org.
And welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. And Rochelle is going to shouldn't be here. And in any event, Kurt Warner is our guest, and he is a licensed therapist. And I got to ask you, when you were 15 and you were going through bipolar and you'd had the brain injury and and OCD, whatever, and all that stuff. And did you think, sitting there at that moment, did you think of where you would be today? A licensed therapist, having a thriving practice, have written a couple of books. Did you think that was even possible for yourself?
No, and it was made very clear to me that it would likely not be possible to myself. The impression that was made on me was that, I was outright said to me, the sheltered workshop would be probably, the best I'm going to aspire for in terms of that. There was all kinds of narratives coming into me that suggested that I wasn't going to be able to do anything. And when I looked at it from an objective standpoint, OCD is about 2.3% of the population. Bipolar disorder is severe bipolar. You're looking at 2.8 or so percent of the population. When it comes to having a severe TBI, it says 14 out of 100,000 is so.
0.00014% kind of thing.
You are very right. Yes, and so it's just a very minute amount. And then when you start looking further at with a three-headed monster like that, the employment rates, the independent living rates, and so on and so forth, the picture becomes a more and more depressing one. And railing against that was what there was acquiescence or there was conflict, and I chose conflict. I chose to, and I don't, and if that meant, I know the stakes, because at the end of every depressive cycle in bipolar, I saw myself at the end of a gun, because you couldn't take it for that long. I knew that there was a point at which I wasn't going to be able to stand it anymore, and so I fought, and I fought as hard as I could. And what I'm trying to argue in the book is that there are strengths in every environment, that if we reconceive of how we look at what's occurring to us, we can find ways to not only endure, but literally become stronger from what we experience, from the conflicts that we go through. And that's and no, I never. But to answer your question, I never imagined. The first goal was just to finish a semester of college, because that was probably not going to happen. And then it became another semester, and then so
Would you say that one of the cornerstones of your success is the fact that you didn't quit? You
yes,
didn't listen. You didn't listen to these other people. You didn't listen to, oh, no, Kurt, you can't do that. You didn't listen to them.
all the professionals, all the suggestions, all the statistics I use as fuel. I use as something, an antagonist to push against. And I talk a lot about in the book the Hegelian sort of synthesis of an antagonist, a thesis, and an antithesis, forming a synthesis. And that's what I did. I used it as fuel to fight, to go against, and to defy. And ironically, I think OCD is a part of that, because all it is an antagonistic disorder. That's part of most people. A lot of people with OCD will be a little bit oppositional. They'll take the opposite side. They'll have a contrarian type of persona a lot of times, in that I've experienced, and I'm not a different person in that too. If you say something that I can't do, I'm going to do it.
You know what they call? You know what they call it? You know, you're a sports guy, and you know what they call that in the sports world?
Well, what do you put they call it in the sports world?
The Seattle Seahawks, the team that I follow, they've got a philosophy. One of them is they want guys with authentic grit, and I've actually used that it's on my website. You can go there and look at it. Authentic grit, but it's also, he has a chip on his shoulder, because he was told he couldn't. Like Richard Sherman always had a chip on his shoulder, because he was drafted in the 5th round, and he said, "How dare you draft me in the 5th round? I'm better than that." So he went out every day to prove that they were wrong. And having a chip on your shoulder sometimes can be really good for you.
Absolutely. And using the football metaphor to, I think the worst thing that a team who's a favorite can do is put down or take a shot at the underdog and say, "Oh yeah, we're going to beat that team. We're going to, they're nothing," because it gives them incentive to play twice as hard.
And you know what they call that?
What?
They call that bulletin board material.
Yes, bulletin board material. Yes.
Because what'll happen is the team, the guy who says that, and the other coach is going to take that in its written form, and they're going to put it on the bulletin board. Look at what this guy says about you that you can't accomplish. And so, and that was motivation for them to accomplish that. Oh, he said that. Well, we'll show him.
Absolutely. But one of the things, Kevin, that I think that I really want to stress is that I'm not a unique snowflake. There's nothing that's special about me that anybody can do. Anybody can fight. Anybody can do what I did in that way. I don't want it to sound like, there's some superhuman fight. I think that everybody can. Varying, I mean, there's lots of obvious difference here, but for the most part, everybody can fight and make a difference in their own lives in a similar way, in their own way. We'll put it that way.
And by the way, Brashelle has joined us. Hey, kid.
Hey, I'm here. Hello, Kurt. I am so thrilled to meet you. Your story is phenomenal. Excuse me while I've been on the phone with what Kevin will say is the president, but I've been trying to listen to what's going on here and join myself in and really I think of movies, and you're the hero in the story, the one who pushed through all of the adversities, the one who didn't listen to anybody else, the one who was like, you know what, if you're gonna tell me no, I'm gonna do it just because you said that. And I was kind of that kid, and I think there can be such a positive to that. So I'm so excited to be here and have this conversation with you and touch in exactly with what you were saying on just um, pushing through. I think there can be a positive, don't you?
Absolutely, I think for sure, and thank you for being here, Rochelle, and absolutely, I think that pushing through could. I think the issue is that when it comes to whether it's mental illness or physical disability or any adversity in life, there's something that clouds us, and especially it clouds us and makes us feel that we can't, that we should give up, that there's no point, nihilistic flair, if you will.
Yeah.
The limbic system, yeah, give a retreat, an amygdala run away type of feeling. Yeah.
Yeah.
And by the way, Kurt, it must be something about the name. That's all I can say. Because Kurt Warner, there is, and I'll just be real brief. There was a guy, his name is Kurt Warner. And he was he graduated from college. He was a football player. He was not drafted by any team. He went to the Green Bay Packers. He was cut before the season started. He then went to arena football for a couple of years, and he stocked shelves in a grocery store to continue to live because the arena football at that time didn't pay him anything. And so he did that. And for 3 years, he got a chance to go to another team for a tryout. And as circumstances would have it, he ended up being the backup to the backup. And then the starter got hurt. And then the backup got hurt. And then he became the starting quarterback. And his coach said, well, I think Kurt's going to do the best he can, and we'll try to make. Kurt Warner ended up playing in the National Football League for 9 years. He was the MVP twice. He won a Super Bowl. He is now in the Hall of Fame. And there's somebody wandering around this planet going, I knew him when he was stocking shelves at the grocery store. And so we have unbelievable potential that all of us, and by the way, don't undersell yourself. I think that you are an exceptional human being.
Thank you. But I think a lot of us, but I think we all have an exceptional human being in us, and there's a choice to move in that direction, and that's what I think sometimes we're blind to because a society, because of a million reasons we're told where we can't, or are made to feel we can't, and that inferiority is what I'm trying to. Those feelings of inferiority in an Adlerian sense is what I'm trying to target in order to realize that all of the things that hurt us make us strong. They literally make us stronger. They literally make us better and more able to face the next thing.
And I got to tell you, my friend Brashelle has been through a bit of the wars herself, but we all have. And it's making that decision, isn't it? Isn't it making the decision? And it's a conscious choice and a decision to live your life better than you lived it yesterday. Forget about the past. Focus on today. You can do it. And just keep going. Do you have a lot of people that come to you, Kurt, and sit on your couch? If you have one, you probably have a chair, but they sit there and go, Kurt, I can't do it. And my mom says I can't do it. And my dad says I can't do it. And the stories that my former girlfriend, before she left me and slept with that other guy, she says I can't do it. I just can't do it, Kurt. Has anybody ever sat on your couch and said that to you?
Many, yes. That concept. Yep.
And your job is to help them realize that they can, which is why I'm so excited about you being on the show, because yes, you can. If you believe you can, yes, you can. And we're all capable.
Absolutely. And what I would reply to it, and what I do reply to it in sessions, is the note. Jean-Paul Sartre was a philosopher who talked about this notion of the other, and the other is people in society, the world around us, who frame who we are. And in the scenario you just gave, everybody you talked about in that person's life saw them in a certain way, and they felt that they became that way because they became the way the person saw them. The other framed them, and the concept is to look at that and say, that's not who's going to make me what I am. I'm going to make me what I am, and fight toward that. And that's where the conflict comes in, because it's all a fight, and there's no way to not say that it is. I mean, that's what it's that thesis, antithesis, and the synthesis that I talked about before. It's all conflict based, and that's what the end of the book. There's a lot of discussion on that notion, the beauty that can come out of conflict, because that's what often happens. Yeah.
Well, I'm impressed that not only can you say big words, you know what they mean too.
Yes. And Kevin, I'm going to beg you right now to please take this commercial, because I have such a broadened question that might take a moment, and I really want to have time for it.
And you haven't seen this commercial yet, Rochelle. And
Okay.
so here we go. We'll be right back with Kurt Warner and Rochelle. Don't go away, anybody. Hey, do you want your content to stand out and grab attention? Well, we've got the magic touch. Professional video editing that keeps eyes locked on the screen. Photo editing that turns ordinary shots into scroll-stopping visuals. Crisp, clean audio editing for podcasts, ads, and more. Social media posting and scripting so your content isn't just seen, it's remembered. And guess what? We've got even more amazing services waiting just for you. Whether you're a brand, a business, or a content creator, we help you show up and stand out. Spots are limited. Don't wait. Email us now or book a call today and turn your vision into viral-worthy content. Don't wait. Hit us up now. And go to kmmedia.pro to find out more. And welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. We're having a tremendous time here with Kurt Warner. He's a licensed therapist. And now I'm going to turn the show over to Rochelle, because she's got an important question to ask.
Yes. So I'm going to take this a little further back. So you talked about how exactly we frame the work in our mind of who we want to be compared to what people say about us, and kind of trying to find the mix of that, who we are and who we show up as, because I do think that's important. And then taking it a step further, it makes me think, I'm going to be so honest with you, Kurt. If I were to have been in your position, I might not have come out the other side, because it takes nothing. I'm not a special person, but for the average person, just thinking about like our audience in the world, just how people are as a whole. There's those people that are like, oh yeah, I can step out of this. There's those people that are like, no, this is where God laid me, and this is where I am going to settle, and this is my future. And then there's that middle line. Do you happen to remember the moment that you were like, I am not going to let this be the sacrifice that takes me down, but the sacrifice that lifts me up? Because I think that we get so stuck, we come at that crossroads, and many of us are like, this road may be ugly, but it's a lot easier. And I know it's going to take me to the same destination, which may be death. But there's the other possibilities, like, but what more can I do while I'm here until that point? Do you remember that crossroads for you, and kind of what that was like?
Yes, and thank you for the question. It's a very good one. I had the cycles, the bipolar. So I have charts of
Right.
bipolar cycles from 15 until 30 something, and there's the long elongated concepts. every one of those cycles, and especially when it went from ultradian, which are small cycles within a day, like they're very short cycles within a day, and then it becomes rapid cycling, which is a little bit longer, and then it becomes full blown bipolar 2 or bipolar 1. The concept that I'm trying to say is, in the midst of the downs, it was so excruciating that Michelle, in a nutshell, I think that my particular physiology is fear-based because of that's what OCD is. As I was explaining to Kevin early on, that the notion of it's always Big Brother threatening you. That's it. Everything runs on fear. You will do this because this will happen.
Right.
And it didn't bother me so much, and it wasn't changing my life when it was when I sort of conceived of the threat as something that wasn't real, and so on and so forth. But with bipolar, I was going to kill myself sooner or later. I think the statistic right now is from NIH, I think it's 20%, 18 to 20%, something like that, to kill themselves when suicide. I got the means, I practiced, I had all kinds, and it was just the number of the downs being low enough for me to do, and I knew that was there. So I knew that to use a Malcolm X phrase, by any means necessary, I had to find a way by any means necessary to break through. And that's where I would do things that I knew that Jekyll knew Hyde couldn't handle. For instance, I would throw myself into college. The reason I started college, everything I've ever done, was because Jekyll, i.e. hypomania or mania, was the thing that signed up for it. And then Hyde had to sit there and say, what the, I don't want to be in this realm. And he would abort it. So I did that enough times until the pain of it, until I found a way for it to stop. And for me, the way for it to stop was lithium. And so after, I don't know, 18 years or something like that of this ride, I was prescribed lithium the first time very poorly. I vomited 44 times in 2 days. I almost went into the hospital because of the issues with my system. The second time I tried lithium, my doctor took in my TBI into account and prescribed it. TBIs are sensitive to medication oftentimes, so at least I am. Little by little by little, she titrated it up, and ever since the cycle stopped. And that, because I could think my way through OCD, I could use cognitive approaches to beat OCD. I could use, to some extent, cognitive approaches to understanding the TBI and how alienating that was for me. But with that, it wasn't. So when I got the lithium, now I had the choice to make something of the freedom, if you will, from an existential standpoint, to make what I wanted of my life. I know I went on a little bit there. Did that answer?
Yes. No, perfectly. And I love how you also brought in how medical can either help or it can destroy. Because a lot of times, doctors think they're helping so many people, and then all of a sudden they're hooked on this thing that is actually what's taking them down faster. Or it's the option that they look out and they seek and they tell a doctor, hey, I need some help and I don't know what else to do. And they give them something that actually helps stabilize them, walk them through those past of life. I was somebody who was like, oh no, I don't take medication. I don't do doctors. I don't do any of these things. And when I went through a really bad depressive episode in my 24 years, I decided, hey, maybe this can help you get to where you want to be rather than setting you back. So I love that you mentioned that. And thank you so much for sharing that. It's very powerful to think that just a one track, it really sets it up for a one track mind can make all the difference. One track mind this way, that way, up, down, all across. You set yourself into exactly where your mind is going to be and what you're being reciprocated from. I don't know if you're very spiritual. Me and Kevin here love energy, and it really does reciprocate with what you're putting out and what you're seeing, and how it affects your perspective and all those things. I'm amazed at you by how you came back and fought all these things with what you already had going on top of these brain surgeries, and deciding, you know what, there's more to me than these things that have been listed and titled, because I know if I have control of my brain and my energy, I can have control of my life and I can heal myself on a deeper level than most people understand.
Yeah, absolutely, Rochelle. And it's not a linear, easy. In other words, the way
Right.
I hope it's not coming across that it was just, oh, then the pill and then everything.
Oh,
It's
no,
this
no,
long
no.
and arduous.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yes.
and to be fair, it's that way up until this day. It's not like everything's always perfect and great.
Oh, yeah.
It's yeah, two steps forward and one step back, and the progress is the point and the purpose is the point. And Rochelle, one of the other things that I have to say toward that end, and I certainly talk about it in the book, is the concept of lithium did what. Yeah, that absolutely, all the credit in the world. It's a remarkable medication for me in that way. But the purpose and the meaningfulness of the things that I
Mhm.
did when I decided, that's the other medication. That's the other
Yep.
concept that I use that in therapy all the time, because that's something that there's few things like it, because that's what makes you push against. That's what makes you keep going. But one foot in front of the
Right.
other was a phrase I used all the time, because
Well, learning from you is incredible. I'm thinking to myself, wow, you have every reason in the world to not complain. So thank you for being here and sharing your message, because really it's humbling to think, maybe some people, they wake up in the morning. I've heard so many stories of, I know we're running out of time and I'm taking so long. I'm so excited to be here and I'm so sorry I was late, but we have these moments where we come into life and we wake up and we decide how our day is going to be right there in those first 30 seconds, 90 seconds, 120 seconds, whatever it is, by based off of how we feel, rather than reevaluate, hey, this is not how I want my day to go, this is not how I want the setting to be. And also understanding that if there are days where your heart are heavy, your heart is heavy, to kind of just let it be. Kevin, I'm speaking your words. I know. I preach this out into the world now, because the powerful effect of just let it be can take you really so far, and it helps you learn to trust more than just yourself and what is around you. So I'm amazed that you're here. Thank you so much for coming on and being on the show. I can't imagine how many people this is going to impact with, the daily, I don't want to get out of bed. Well, you have feet to walk, you have arms to use, you have a brain. You have a brain that works, that is powerful, that can decide who you are, what you want your life to look like. The realization of that may just be a little heavy sometimes. So, thank you so incredibly much for being here. And I'm so sorry I was late.
And
no,
and
no, no problem. And thank you for having me very much.
and
Sorry,
by the
Kevin.
way, Kurt, the what she just said is what I like to refer to as the gospel according to Paul McCartney. Let it be.
Okay.
Yes. I was having a hard day yesterday, and really I think it's so powerful how words can be so impacting. I've been very focused on the words that I'm using and when people speak to me and how they're doing it and what I'm allowing. Kevin sent me 3 words in capital letters, let it be. And I know I've heard this a million times, but it was a day where I tried so hard to push myself through, and I saw that message from Kevin and it brought me to tears, because it reminded my soul that, hey, not everything works for your greatest purpose. And if you make a plan, God's probably laughing at you, but He knows what's better in purpose, as we sense in the world. And it helped me really relax. And I'll tell you, I got the best sleep of my life, Kurt. So I'm very thankful to have had the opportunity to have you here and have you understanding. And I would love to share more about exactly how to get in touch with you, your website, all those fun things before we leave, and any message you'd love to share with our audience.
In terms of the website is kurtwarnerbooks.com, and that's the easiest way to get in touch with me. There's an email, certainly there, and the message that I'd like to leave the audience with is that everyone has a great deal of worth, no matter how much despair we have. We can find ways to circumvent it by challenging it, by being by we can find a wealth of ways to overcome it, and especially when it seems like there is no way out. And statistically, I am proof of that, and it can be done.
Mm, very beautiful.
KurtWarnerBooks.com is where you go and he's got 2 books out, and you're gonna have to come back, because Brachelle's got a ton more questions for you, and 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 stuff. And you are the epitome of what we stand for here. You've faced challenges and you've worked through them to become the man that you are and the man that you will become.
Absolutely, man. I certainly hope to become. And but thank you, Kevin, for your kind words, and again, thank you for having me on today. I really an honor.
You have a wonderful day, Rochelle. Thank you, and I'll talk to you soon. And have a great day, everybody. Thanks for listening to this episode of Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Our purpose is to provide everyone with a positive, entertaining, and educational experience. I would love your feedback and comments about the show, including possible topics and great guest suggestions. Please email me at kevin@kmmedia.pro. And remember, be kind to one another because each other's all we've got. That's Kevin at kmmedia.pro.